Now, and I'm also going to show you how we can work together.
Right, my story is one of victory against all odds. And I tell you this story to encourage you and to encourage any child that circumstances need not dictate your destiny. You'll find that this story is about much struggle by a child, but you will also discover just how much power each one of us has. You will discover the power of a dream. You will discover the power of a mental image, and you will discover the power of self image. In this story, I will try as much as I can to tell you only my own details and experiences and not the details that have been given to me by other people unless I really have to, because I don't want to be talking about other people, especially because they haven't given me permission to talk about them. Now, right, I was born in Kenya to an unmarried high school girl, and I hear everyone shouting taboo because then, about 35 years ago, it was a taboo really for such a thing to happen. Obviously, these are details that my mom has given me, and it's not a secret. Fantastic, because of the circumstances under which I was born. As long as I can remember from early childhood, I lived in different homes of extended family members because my mom had to go back to school, and I got moved from one home to the next one, and all I can remember is home hopping, right? I can tell you, apart from the instability of being shipped from one house to the other, I can remember being a very loved and liked child. Two people that I particularly remember that always were praising me and doting on me and showering me with confidence were my grandpa and my uncle. And they really continued to do this. They continued to praise me over and over again until, until they died. Until their death. They were just always encouraging me and praising me. Now, at the age of 5, my mom got married to a man, and I can clearly remember that day because it was not only a wedding by day, but it was hell by night. It was like hell broke loose that night. The same man that had stood in elegance during the day, during his wedding, came back home that night hurling abuses at both me and my man. And I can remember him saying how big a favor he has done us for marrying my mum. As a 5-year old, I didn't understand this apparent favor he had done for us. And I remember him clearly saying that we were going to pay him for the favor he had done us. Wow. I tell you, that day was the beginning of my childhood hell. The physical, mental, psychological abuse. That day was the beginning of my childhood hell. The physical, the mental, and the psychological abuse was to become a commonplace. This hellish, it became a hellish environment. Hellish episodes were repeated almost on a daily basis for a very, very long time. It was just chaos all the time, fighting. The person was always fighting me, fighting my mom. And it was sad. It was a really sad situation. I remember one day crying to my uncle and asking him to take me away because this horror in this new home, it was just too much, right? I can still clearly see his face, you know? He was always fighting, always angry, always, gosh, anyway. Now, that day I was crying to my uncle and I said to him, you know what? You've got to take me away from this home. It's just too much. That's a 5-year-old crying for help, right? And then I remember my uncle looking at me and he said to me, Angela, I have no power to take you away. But you know what? You are the best girl ever. and only you can rescue yourself from all these horrors. And I wondered, how can a 5-year-old, how can a small girl rescue themselves from these horrors? And my uncle continued to say, you just have to have a dream and imagine the best life you want. And know that there are people out here who truly love you. But above all, I want you to love yourself most. I want you to make believe a dreamland where all these troubles are no more. Where there are no troubles, where everything is okay, where everything seems okay. And he went on, every time something happens, something not very nice, just go to that land and everything will be okay. It was hard that he wouldn't take me away, but I think this was one of the best gifts that anyone has ever given to me. My uncle clearly knew the power of a dream. And when I think about it, he must have had some understanding of it himself, because he ended up becoming one of the most successful men in the family, and in fact he was one of the most successful person in the country. Now see, my uncle couldn't take me away, and therefore I was left with the choice that he had suggested to me about making a make-believe dreamland. So at the age of 5, my imagination kicked in, and sure enough, I imagined a land, a beautiful, beautiful land where I was the queen. And I truly believe that was when my life took a shift. I really made that land where I lived as the queen. There were no troubles in that imaginary land in my mind. And that is where I started going when things were not working out okay in the physical. That is where I took solace. Right. Let me say something. Connecting the dots today, that was the beginning of my winning episodes. You know what? I became what I imagined myself to be. I can tell you that the abusive circumstances did not vanish. Oh no, the person continued to fight us, the person continued to abuse us. But those episodes no longer disturbed me as much as they disturbed me before I learned about this imagination. The reason they didn't disturb me was because I always went back to my solace. And after all, I was a queen in a most beautiful land in my mind, right? One day, I remember my mom packing up the few things we had, and I thought, phew, we were leaving this man behind forever. You can imagine the joy. You can imagine my joy of thinking that my dream had really come true. But I later learned that we were only moving to the man's mother's house in some village. And the arrangement was that he would stay where we stayed before, which was in the city, and then he would come to the village every weekend. Phew! Oh, I sighed. I just said, whoo, thank God. He's not going to be with us every day, right? Even though he wasn't totally gone, I rejoiced because at least I didn't have to deal with his toxicity every day. Well, we only had to deal with it in the weekend. I was so grateful. Yeah, you should have seen me jumping all over the place, I saw this as a move closer towards my dream, where I would have no troubles at all. Now, I tell you, the man seemed to have kept his word about us paying him. Every weekend he came home in the village, and all I can remember was physical abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse. Oh, anyway. Anyway, the thing is, fight as he might, he could never touch my dream. He could never touch my land, the land where I was the queen, right? So, at about 6 years, I was taken to a place that they said it was school. Ah, the school was a windowless, doorless building. And I tell you, sometimes we read and studied under a tree. But there's something I can tell you, that this never seemed to bother me, even when some of our. At age 6, I was taken to a place where they said it was school. The school was a windowless, doorless building, and sometimes we read under a tree. This never seemed to bother me, even when some of on our way home, some children from a neighboring school would taunt and laugh at us because of our doorless and windowless shack. This taunting was so serious that some of the children that went to my school, they dropped out of school because it was too much. It was just too much. But me, my physical circumstances may have been as they appeared. But in my mind, I always reminded myself that I was a queen. I remained a queen, and a queen who lived in a castle. There were many, many external circumstances that would have broken me. But when kids said all the nasty things, actually, I felt sorry for them and wondered if they knew what they were saying. And I wondered, how could they say such a thing? Could they see I was a queen? I was taunted from being I was also taunted for being an outside wedlock child, right? Because obviously my mom got married when she already had me. I was taunted for that. I was also taunted for being the child whose mom and family was always being beaten by their father, and so many things. I was always being taunted. But even though I didn't know, those days I didn't know Mr. MC Hammer's song, but I can tell you, I must have been singing and humming his lyrics. Can't touch this. Yep, I must have been singing. Mm, 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 mm. Can't touch this. Anyway, now let's reflect on the part of my life, on this part of my life that I've just told you. And what does it really mean? What does it really mean? Now, what I'm saying is, now your child may not be going through any of the troubles that I had. And in fact, I wish and I really hope that no child has to go through what I went through. I shudder to think how a small girl can be subjected to so much horror, right? But let's get the story in perspective. Our children today may not go through those same challenges, but be sure they will go through some challenges. The challenges of today. The question is, can they beat it? And my answer to you is yes. Your child is capable of beating anything. Any child is capable. But you know what? We need to tell them that they can. And we need to empower them. They need the strength to do it themselves. No one can do or face the challenges for them. So we need to empower them, right? Their challenges could be any of this, any of the challenges they could be facing. It could be food issues, health issues, family issues, religion issues, personality issues, performance issues, anything. You name it. I know exactly how children can win in any challenges. And how can they do that? It is the image they hold of themselves. It is the image they hold of themselves. Who do they think they are? Because the person that they believe they are is what is going to conquer anything. In an earlier program, I mentioned about the 6 higher mental faculties, which, when developed, your child can be anything and attract anything they desire. Right. These mental muscles are imagination, memory, intuition, reasoning, the will, and perception. And I mentioned that an educated person is a person who has so developed their higher mental faculties that they can attract anything they desire or its equivalent without violating the rights of others. Now, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm going to say, and I want you to be the judge, right? At age 5, I made a decision to live the best life no matter what was happening around me. I pulled into and I pulled onto my imagination and I made an image. Making that image was one way of developing my imagination, which, as I have mentioned, is one of the higher mental faculties. Right, by storing my picture so that I could draw upon it when things were tough on the outside, I was developing my memory. Remember, memory is another mental faculties? Right. The thing is, it was such a nice dream, and I was determined that no one was going to steal it. Do you see me developing my will? The will, the determination to do something is another mental faculty called the will. And because of the image in my mind, my perception of the world changed, right? My perception of the world had changed. Remember, I mentioned that I felt sorry for the kids that taunted me? I could have hated them or felt sorry for myself because they taunted me. But my perception of them was being influenced by the image I had in my mind. And I saw the kids as children who were not aware of what they were doing. And because of the image of me, I was able to intuitively pick up what was good for me and what was not good for me. You see, many people would say that I was not an educated child at that age. And of course, I hadn't gone to school. But I was seriously developing my higher mental faculties, right? I can tell you, I did not know it myself. I did not know that was what was happening, right? Let's go back to what Napoleon Hill said. An educated person, an educated child, or an educated grown up is one who had. Let's go back to what Napoleon Hill said. An educated person. Who is an educated person? An educated person is a child or a grown up, one who has so developed the faculties of their mind that they can attract anything they desire without violating the rights of others. What am I saying here? What am I saying? Our children can develop their higher mental faculties from any age, and now that we know, we can help them develop these mental faculties because we know them. And we know that when they have their mental faculties developed, they can attract anything. They can attract anything without violating the rights of others. What are we talking about here? We're talking about success. If you want your child to become successful, you have to start thinking in terms of how can I develop? How can I help my child develop their higher mental faculties? Nothing else will cut it. Any successful person, they have a developed higher mental faculties. It's nothing else will cut it. Right. From my experience with schools, I have, you may know by now that I have gone to school. I went to school in primary school. I have been to a high school. I have been to colleges, and I have even been to higher education. So you know that when I talk about education, I'm not just from my experience with schools that I have attended myself, as well as having worked with kids who are in school. Schools don't teach children to develop their mental faculties. If your child doesn't learn it elsewhere, oh, I'm sorry. However, in our everyday life, your child will meet with people, some of who may be in the school, who may be school teachers, who may be able to help them develop their mental faculties. They may do this unconsciously or consciously. If your child is not fortunate enough to meet someone who understands these higher mental faculties, chances are that they will go through life. They will go through school without understanding these mental faculties and without developing them, right? And the thing is, They may go to school and know about a lot of things, because school really does teach children about a lot of things. Yeah, but they may come out knowing so many things, but they will leave school without the ability to attract the greatest life they really desire for themselves. Let me tell you something. Show me any successful person, and I will show you a person of higher awareness, a person whose mental faculties that are so developed, and they continue to develop these higher mental faculties every day. Fantastic. Now let's move on to another bit of my story, and I'm going to speak to you about me at the age of 7. Right. At the age of 7, one of my best friend died, and they said that she had died because of low immune system. At that time, I didn't know what that meant, but on the day she died, I made a decision never to get sick because I didn't want to die. I didn't want to miss all the fun that was happening in my dreamland. I loved the great sensation I experienced every time I visited my image, every time I visited my land. It was really sad to lose a friend at that age. Right. In a science lesson the same year, we learned about vegetables and how they helped your immune system. And that's when things clicked. I realized whatever this immune system was that my friend had died because she didn't have a good one, and the reason she didn't have a good immune system was because she was not eating good food. I learned that we could help the immune system by eating vegetables. More than ever before, I was convinced that I would never get sick. Not only just from just saying that I would never get sick and not wanting to die like the way my friend died, but now because I knew there was a way I would make sure that that didn't happen. I already had the information that vegetables would make my immune system stronger. The day we learned about those vegetables, I went straight home and said to my mom, Mama, we are gonna plant some vegetables. Right. Obviously, we needed to sow vegetable seeds, and my mom didn't have the seeds or the money to buy the seeds. So again, I immediately made a plan in my mind. When the weekend came, I went to work in someone's coffee farm, to harvest some coffee so that I could earn some money to buy some seeds. And then I got the money on that day, and then I bought the seeds, and next day I bought the seeds and we sowed them, and obviously following all the instructions on the packet. And sure enough, in about 3 to 4 months, we had cabbage, we had kale, we had carrots, eggplants, onions. Wow. This harvest not only made me and my family have good food to eat, but we sold the produce for quite some time and made a lot of money. You see, seeing the results, after seeing the results of this first harvest, my mom got into the habit of planting these vegetables, and they proved to be quite lucrative. And also, they relieved us of the burden of not knowing where the next meal would come from, because apart from us eating from the harvest, we would sell some of it, and then we would make some money, and then we would buy the other things that we needed. So at least we didn't have to worry much about food for some time. And it was good. It was good, and it was great. It was great for us to start eating some decent food. And when I think about it, some of the food we ate earlier, I think, gosh, there was absolutely no goodness in it. It's no wonder kids all over the place were dying, right? Again, let's revisit the power of the mind and the power of our dreams, right? I've just told you that's a simple story of me at the age of 7. Right. The child or the person I was within, the person that I knew I was larger than the person I was in the physical. Can you see how much I am protecting my dream? Can you see how much this child is protecting her real self? I made a decision never to get sick, right? Not only did I make that decision not to get sick, I started taking action so that I could prevent myself from getting sick. Can you see the determination and the will and the initiative, right? Can you see that? Right? I already had a dream and I wanted to protect it. I wanted it so much to realize that I was willing to do anything. I wasn't prepared to die, right? And I was prepared to do anything not to make my dream come true, right? Now, no one told me to plant these seeds, right? Remember, no one told me to plant these seeds and all the vegetables, but my desire to keep myself alive, my desire to keep my dream alive and to protect my real me. I was prepared to do anything. So I took the information I learned in school and then I did something with it, right? You may have listened to me as I presented the 4 irrefutable principles of prosperity and success. Right. And the power principle number 1, I said it is personal awareness, which is when we understand or when a child understands who they really are and what they are capable of. You can see that by age 7, I had established a sort of realization of who I was. I seem to know who I am, and I am proud of who I am, and not anything anymore anyone says. It looks like I have an understanding of exactly who I am and what I am capable of, right? And I am continuing to strengthen my image every day. I am taking life into my hands. I am determining my health and wellness. Did I know I was doing these things? No, I don't think so. But the truth is, I was doing it and it was working for me because these principles of success are not dependent on whether you know them or not, right? But they will work every time if you align yourself with them. It's just like the principle of gravity. Whether you know it or not, if you jump up high, you will come back down. The fortunate thing is that we know these principles and we know what they are, and we can consciously help our children align themselves with them, right? Now, let's move on to my story again. And I'm gonna tell you now a story of me at about age 9. Right. One day I really wanted to go to my grandfather's house. Mom, as usual, didn't have any money, even the few shillings that I needed to transport to get there. So again, I went to work in someone else's farm to get some money. This particular time I remember so well because the work was so hard. Yeah, it was so hard. This is one of the some of the hardest times when I went to work in someone else's farm, and we had to not only pick the coffee, harvest the coffee, but we had to transport the heavy coffee bags on our backs to a factory that was miles away. And it was not just miles away, it was up a hill. And I did this hard manual labor for 9 days, 9 consecutive days at 3 shillings a day in order to get the 27 shillings that I needed to go and visit my grandpa. And you know what? I can feel a cold pain down my spine when I remember this one. But you know what? I had to do it. I just had to do it. And every year we went to visit Grandpa at Christmas. This particular Christmas, besides there not being any money, my mom's husband had warned that nobody would be going to Grandpa's house. I said to Mom, there was no way I was going to miss out on going to Grandpa's house. She said we didn't have the money, and that's the reason I went to work to get the money, right? So for 9 days, I did this hard, and really, it was really hard manual labor for me to get the 27 shillings that I needed to go to Grandpa's house. So I said to Mom to let me go because even if I went, the man, her husband, wouldn't notice that I was even gone because he would drink all night and come home and fight everyone and then sleep all day. So he wouldn't notice I was gone. He wouldn't notice a thing. So my mom said to me, okay, I could go. Now, you wonder, why would I want to work my young body to near death for 27 shillings? Here is the reason. I loved going to my grandpa's house, and now you may be wondering, why would I want to work my little body to near death for 27 shillings? And that is 27 Kenya shillings. Here is the reason. I loved going to Grandpa's house. Grandpa was my encourager. He was the person that said to me I could do it. He is the person that said to me that you can achieve anything. He's the person that said to me that you have great life. There is bigger plans that what you can see. You're going to have a great life. He reinforced the image I had created in my mind. He brought the best out of me and always believed in me. My grandpa and my uncle, and they taught me, they taught me to be the best person. They taught me to believe in myself. They taught me to keep going no matter what. And I remember there was also another grandma who taught me in Sunday school that also always saw me as a greater person than what appeared. She saw me as greater and bigger than what I was, and I believed her. And that's the thing is, the thing is, if someone can believe for your child, if someone can help them believe in themselves and also reinforce that belief in them, they can achieve anything. These people, they saw me as more than a girl in tatters. They saw me as more than a girl with dirty feet. Funny enough, because do you see why I was determined to go to Grandpa's house? I wouldn't miss. It was one session a year. I spent time with him, and you know what? I came back knowing that I could move mountains. After a session with Grandpa, I knew I could move any mountain. Right. It's funny because when I was preparing for this story, I thought to myself, looks like I started going and paying for my personal growth a long time ago, even before I knew a thing about motivational and inspirational speaker. Anyway, let's go back to Grandpa. This man was wise, sitting at his feet and him telling me stories of triumphant people, and him telling me that he could see something beyond. He could see me becoming bigger than anything that had ever been known before. He encouraged me not only to hold on to my dream, but to perfect my image every day. You know what? I became a dragon slayer in the village. I was performing at levels not known before. Why? Because of my image, and also because someone else believed in me. I was always a top kid in my class. I became the inspirational person, the encouraging person, the person who was always encouraging other people. I was only a small girl, but at that age, I was already encouraging people to be their very best and showing them that they can be their very best regardless of what's happening. I started the thought that there was no reason why we couldn't be as good as everyone else. I just started saying to everyone in our class, we can be good as everyone else. No matter how our school is, no matter what is going no matter what we are going through in our lives, even though our school is a shack, we could, like a doorless, windowless shack, we could be anything we wanted to be. And you know what? Our school started becoming a top school. It started making it to the top of the league. And you know what? My name started being mentioned in the districts and the provinces. In my Sunday school competition, I won almost all the class entries. These activities, just these activities that I undertook, they took me all over the country. Was it because I had resources? No. It was just because I was resourceful. The self-image, the person I saw myself as. I saw myself as a winner, and that is what was happening on the outside. Now, let's come back to why I am telling you all this. I want you to know that your child can become anything and everything they want. And they don't need anything, and they don't need any special magical wand or any gadgets to become everything they want to be. No, all they need is to be empowered and inspired. They need to understand who they really are and what they are capable of achieving. And then, using their higher mental faculties, they can achieve anything they want. Remember, I keep going back to the 4 irrefutable principles of prosperity that I talked about. I talked about having the right relationships and having the powerful relationships. Right. Look at who my influence at that age was. It was Grandpa. I was so aligned with this principle of powerful relationships. And I was prepared to work for 9 full days to get the money to spend a session with Grandpa, right? In the lesson, the 4 principles of success said, in the lesson, the 4 principles of success, the 4 irrefutable principles of success, I talk about how powerful relationships are very essential for your child to become a success, right? About how your child must have safe relationships with people that encourage them to be everything they ever want to be, right? I remember I learned from an early age to choose peers and friends who are not dream thieves, who are not dream stealers and crushers. Until today, I tend to choose people who are very positive and driven. I tend to encourage people in every situation. Right? Most successful people will tell you that they have associations with like-minded people, people who encourage them and cheer them on in a positive way. Right? Any child can learn this habit of choosing wise and safe relations from a very early age. Listen to more examples that are presented in the 4 irrefutable principles of prosperity, and you will understand what I'm talking about. Fantastic. Now, let's move on to another piece of my story at the age of 11. Right? At the age of 11, something very remarkable happened. A new head teacher joined our school. Apart from him being a head teacher, he taught us English, and I loved the way he spoke. I loved the way he spoke. He was, he spoke very charismatically, right? His accent was different from any of the teachers who had taught us before. In one of the lessons, he said that a man without a dream is dead. I don't quite remember how I understood that, but I remember thinking to myself, wow, I must be alive because I have a dream, right? Starting from the back of the class, he went round asking what our dreams were. Wow. And I thought, ooh, there was no way I was going to tell them what my dream was. They're going to laugh at me. Oh, was I going to tell them that I saw myself as a queen? I said I wasn't going to say it. And he went on asking, and he went round pointing at all the kids and asking. And then it was my turn to shout out my dream. And the following words came out of my mouth. I want to travel the whole wide world and visit all the countries that I see on this map. You should have heard the laughter as some of the kids nearly fell off their seats. But the teacher looking at all of them, he said, never, ever laugh at anyone's dream. And he turned to look at me. With eyes full of certainty, he said, you can bring that dream to reality. And you can bring it if you can dream it. Wow, that sentence struck me, and I found myself pondering on it all day. And for some reason, I became so thankful that the teacher had confirmed that my thoughts, and someone had confirmed that I wasn't mad, right? Apart from my grandfather and my uncle and my grandma, the one who taught at Sunday school, one more person had confirmed what I had always believed, that I can actually bring my dream to reality. Right? Wow. I really can be. That day I thought, wow, I really can become not only a queen in my mind, but in reality. And not just a queen, but a queen who travels the whole world. Ah, and that's when a lot of things started to fall in place. I instantly understood the reason that I did not feel bothered by all the misery that was surrounding me was because I was alive with a good dream. My dream, that of being a queen. The reason I did not feel hungry even when I hadn't had something to eat was because I viewed myself as a queen in a palace, and a queen in a palace had everything they needed. And they knew no lack. The reason I did not get sick was because there was no way as a queen I was going to get sick. Ah, amazing. That night, my dream became even bigger. I found myself filled with so much joy about my life and everything that had ever happened to me. The image of the queen in my mind was such that this queen was now arranging to travel many, many lands. And then I saw the queen going to lands, any land she wished to go. The dream you or your child holds in their mind will attract other thoughts that make it become a reality. It makes it become even bigger. On that day, I decided I was going to travel the whole world. Now, as I speak to you, right, I have been to very many countries. The dream doesn't take into account your present circumstances. It brings its own from the unseen world. As I write to you this, as I read to you this, yeah, as I tell you this story, I'm telling you this sitting in my house in England. And if anyone was to look rationally at all my facts, they would swear there was no way a girl in such circumstances would be here where I am today. It just doesn't happen. But dreams don't know facts. Dreams ignore the facts. They have their lives of their own. Dreams have a life of their own, and they bring forth anything we can imagine. What I'm saying here is the dream that your child holds is like a power engine that will take them wherever they want to go and will make them whatever they want to be. And I'm telling you that dream, fueled with the 4 irrefutable power principles, nothing can shake them and nothing can stop them. We are talking about an unstoppable generation, a dream breed, a dream, a dream world where children can dream and bring to reality their dreams. I feel excited as I speak about these things because I know the power of a dream. I know the power of a dream. And if your child becomes a dreamer and takes action on their dream, my goodness, we are talking about a powerful generation. Now, let's continue with my story. At about age 12, I made another leap of faith that also would change my destiny forever. In the beginning of the year, I was in standard 8. I was in class 8, and they asked us to choose at school. They asked us to choose what high school we wanted to go. Without any sort of hesitation, I chose the best school in the country. No one in the district, no one where I lived had ever gone to a school like that. Yeah, in fact, the teachers came round and they suggested the schools that we should choose. When they saw my choice, one of the teachers looked at me with pitiful eyes. One teacher said to me, "You know what, Angela? You normally perform well, but I still think you should choose a provincial school. Choose something that's reasonable." those that went through the Kenyan schooling system in the years in the 80s might understand what I'm talking about. But for the rest of the people listening, this is what it is. In Kenya, there are a couple of schools called the national schools where the cream of the cream are specially invited to go to. That is the top performers in the country. Then we have a second level where the second best are invited, and those are called the provincial schools. And then we have the third level, and that's the district schools. And then we go on like that. We go on like that. So what I'm trying to say is that I chose the best school. I chose the national school, right? On my way from school that day, one of the boys burst out laughing, and he went on to poke other children and saying to them, Angela's going to a national school. And they laughed. You know, their laughter became a jeering chorus. And other kids, especially boys from other neighboring schools, they joined. It was like a laughing choir. They were all laughing at me because I had chosen to go to one of the best schools in the country. I remember saying to them, have you forgotten that I am a top performer in the whole district? And to this, they said, that's a district level. And they kept saying, no one has ever gone to a national school. You think you're going to be the first. And I said to them, have you forgotten that my name is one of the ones that is mentioned in top of the leagues? I will do this as well. I also reminded them about my performances in Sunday school, and this just invited even more laughter. They were laughing so hard. You know what? Suddenly something said to me, you know what? Don't bother arguing with them. And suddenly I stopped arguing with them and I just let them laugh. From then on, I never discussed with anyone about my choice of school and my desire to go to a national school. And every time any of them would mention it, I would not even speak about it. But in my head, in my dream, I held on to that. And I knew without a shadow of doubt that I was going there. Right. Why am I saying this to you? What I'm saying is, as your child goes towards their dream, as they hold on to their dream, they will meet with resistance. They will meet with derision. But you know what? Nothing can overcome the power of a dream, and a dream that is protected by the person who holds the dream. And how can your child protect their dream? Yeah? How can your child protect their dream? Let me say, it is Henry Thoreau that said that if you will advance confidently in the direction of your dreams and endeavor to live the life you have imagined, you will meet with success unexpectedly in common hours. And I can say yes to that because I know it has happened in my life. And what I'm saying today is that if your child will advance confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavor to live the life they have imagined, they will meet with success unexpectedly in common hours. And that is definitely going to happen. Again, let me go back to the 4 irrefutable principles of prosperity. Personal awareness. Yes, the knowing that they can, no matter what. And then there's the powerful relations, being in the group that encourages you to keep going on, right? And then holding that dream with the will, knowing that you will do it so that they can advance confidently in the direction of their dream. You know, you see what I'm saying? It's not just one thing. It's not just knowing that you have a dream. It's keeping on going no matter what. It's having the right kind of people, the right kind of environment that encourages your child to keep going no matter what. And it's being thankful in every situation. Yeah, as they go on towards their dream. And I hope that the one thing you can see is that all the four irrefutable principles of success and prosperity, they're crossing through the story. They are interrelated. You cannot really have one without the other one. We are talking personal awareness, powerful relations, the power of praise and gratitude, and the all-time power of persistence. All of them have to be there so that your dream and so that your child's dream can become a reality. Right? Now, you see, persistence is that spirit within your child that will keep them going no matter what. Persistence is normally backed by faith. It's a decision that is backed by faith, and it sees no failure. It sees every bump as an opportunity to rise higher and see ahead. Persistence is the hand that lifts you, that will lift your child up from if they fall. And when you raise your hand after falling, persistence has given more heroes to the world than anything else. I can say persistent without a shadow of doubt has lifted me from the mire of poverty and abuse to a life of freedom and success. It has given me the opportunity to educate children how they can be super successful no matter what. Now, let's go back to my story. Right. Exactly 1 year after I had chosen the high school that I wanted to go, the results were out, and to everyone's shock, I had made it. I had not only passed with top marks, I was going to the school that I had chosen. I was invited to the exact school that I had chosen. You know what? I had known without a doubt that that was the school where I was going. Don't get me wrong. This is in no way conceit. No. It is knowing without a doubt that the image you plant in your subconscious mind will bring a replica of the same into the physical. What am I telling you? Why am I saying this? What I'm telling you is just a few episodes of my life can prove to you that your child can make it no matter what. And I hope that you understand that these principles have worked for thousands of people and thousands of children all over the world. It has worked in my life. It has worked for hundreds of children that I have personally had the privilege to work with. And it has worked for children, thousands of children all over the world that I haven't worked personally with, but other people have worked with. Anyone who understands and aligns themselves with the information that I am sharing with you today, they will definitely succeed. And that's why I'm asking you to induct your child into these principles, to bring your child into the realization of this information. I think my life gets even more interesting because from about the age of 10, I can remember almost everything that was happening in my life, right? And I've just told you how I went to the school that I was invited to go to the school that I exactly wanted to go to, right? I remember the first day of my high school. It was one of my happiest days in my life. Without a doubt, I knew I would have 3 meals a day. I knew that I had escaped the hurling abuses at home and the abuse, the physical abuse at home, the mental abuse, and I knew I did not have to do hard and manual work. Wow, my dream was becoming true. For the first time, I was actually certain that I was going to have a meal every time I went to the dining room. For the first time in my life, I was going to wear shoes every day. For the first time in my life, I was going to have a shower every day. And for the first time in my life, I was going to have some peace and freedom. This was good. It was truly a dream come true. I was determined to keep this experience as long as I could. Right. The thing is, after having been there for just a week in my high school for just a week, the headmistress called me to her office and she said to me, "Do you realize that your parents didn't bring enough school fees?" And I mean, what could I answer? I don't know. I mean, I knew they didn't have money, but I didn't know how I was expecting to go through school without paying school fees. But uh, what she said, she suggested that you must write to them and ask them to send the money. And I looked at the fees that was required for me to to write to my parents and ask them to write to my mom and ask her to bring that money to school. And I thought, holy thing! I had seen such numbers together. Not, gosh, I thought, oh my God, the only place I have seen these numbers was in a maths lesson where we were required to work with big numbers. And here, the headmistress is asking me to ask my mom to bring such amounts? I didn't even know that such amounts existed in money form. I thought she was joking. You know, up to that point, I didn't think that more than 100 shillings existed. You know, and I'm talking about 100 shillings, Kenya shillings, which is equivalent of 60 pence. You know. Anyway, I was usually not one to worry, but for this one time I worried. I really was concerned about my mom, and I thought she would die. I thought she would die by merely seeing the figure that she was required to cough. You know what? I decided I wasn't even going to write to her and tell her. You know? I thought, are they serious? Asking for a couple of thousands? Oh, I had never seen 100 shillings in one place, leave alone 1,000. 3 weeks after enjoying my heavenly palace, the headmistress called me to her office and said that since my parents had not responded, she had no choice but to send me home to go and get the money. So, home I was sent. Let me show you how broke I was. Do you know they had to give me money? They had to give me transport money to go home and get the money. So they gave me 30 shillings. I went home and I had to tell my mom about this school fees thing. And I can remember my mom looking really stressed. And she looked at the amount and, you know, it was a very sorry state. You know, she was in a very sorry state. But being the woman she is, for the next few days she left home every day and went to work in someone's firm to try and raise the money. After a week, she gave me 120 shillings to take back to school, and she said for me to explain to them that she would keep sending money as she got some. Do you know what? I looked at the amount that they needed, which was close to about 4,000 shillings, and then I compared it to the 120 shillings that she had given me to take back. And you know what? Those two figures, they were so far apart. But that was another moment I made a decision. I made a decision that would change my life again forever. Do you know, I said I would never again be sent home from school. And I also said I would complete my school, right? My schooling. I don't know how, but I would never ever again go home to get the money. How that was going to happen, I didn't know. But I had resolved never again to have such an experience because it wasn't nice. Me going home to get money that didn't exist. It was just horrible. And looking at my mom's face of desperation. It was just a horrible state. Anyway, I went back to school and I gave the 120 shillings to the bazaar. You should have seen the bazaar when I handed him the 120 shillings. He shook his head. He compared the money I gave to him and the balance on my account, and he just shook his head. On top of that, he subtracted the 30 shillings they had given me to go home for transport, the money, the 30 shillings they'd given me, and he subtracted it from 120. That means really I had taken back 90 shillings. He said, to me, I think you're joking. I think you're joking, aren't you? And then he shook his head and he said, you will soon be going back home to get more money. You know what? I stared at him. The bursar subtracted the 30 shillings he had given me as transport to go home. So really, the money I had brought back was reduced to 90 shillings. And he took the money and he was just shaking his head. And he said to me, I think you're joking. And I know you will soon be going back home to get some more money. That's the moment I stared at him as he said that. And in my mind, I said to him, not me, never again. I will never repeat this experience again. I will complete my studies here no matter what. And then I came back to the physical, and then I said, thank you very much. And off I went to the dormitories. A few weeks down the line, the headmistress called me to her office and said that I needed to see the bazaar because of how big my fee balance was. I went to see the bazaar and he gave me a balance slip again to take home. He said, today you're going home to get the money. Like laughing at me, he asked if I had transport. And quickly I replied, yes, I have money. I took the balance slip. I took it calmly and went to the dormitory as if to pick my things and go home. I remember sitting on my bed and repeating the following statement. I am never going home to get no money. I am never going home to get no money. I am never going to get home to get no money. Then a voice from within said, oh no, you are not going anywhere. You're not going home to get no money. And immediately I was filled with peace. I left the dormitories, I took nothing with me, and I headed for the gate. At the gate, a thought crossed my mind. And that's when I thought, you can go up to the bottom gate. That we had two gates at school. There was one at the top and there was one at the bottom. The one where after you left that one, you went to the road. So I went to up to the bottom gate, and I thought, right, if I get to the bottom gate, I can stand there, and while other kids are coming back from the games field, I can go back with them. And then I'll just sneak in and blend in and go back. And no one is going to find out. That was the thinking of a child. And that's exactly what I did. For the next 2 years in high school, every few months they would send me home, and this is what I would do. I would go to the bottom gate and wait for when kids were coming down for games, and then when they were going back, I would go back with them. For 2 years, this is how I played this game. My mom, bless her, was diligent in her efforts because every few months she would send a couple of coins in. And the cumulative fees needed for me to stay in school was exceeding, it was always exceeding how much she sent in, because I could see every time they gave me the fee balance, I could see how much she had sent in and how much was remaining. And this went on, and I was determined that I was going to stay in school because I did not see for what reason I was going home. I just didn't see. Then something really strange happened. In my third year, all this sending me home ceased altogether. And in my third year and the fourth year, surprisingly, Strangely, I was never asked to go home. I was never sent home. And you know what? I didn't bother asking why. Because I feared they might check and see and find my file and send me home. During the holidays, one day I asked my mom if she had paid all the money, and she said no. Every once in a while, the fear of them pulling my file crossed my mind, and I was afraid they would send me home. But you know what? I reminded myself of all the things and the miraculous things that had happened in my life, and I was suddenly filled with gratitude and the feelings that I was a very blessed person. And I would forget all the dangers and all the threats and all the fear that they would send me home would just disappear. Do you know what? I remember the last day of high school. Oh my God. The last day I remember when parents came to pick their kids. Oh my God. I was so happy. I was so happy because I knew I had escaped all that being sent home and all that school fees thing. All that bustle. I was so happy. Yeah? Parents came to pick their kids up because they needed, we needed to take home everything that we had brought to school. But for me, I didn't have anyone to come and pick me up from school. So what I had done, I had given away everything. I gave away everything. I gave away my clothes. I gave away everything that I owned because I didn't have transport, right? And for me, it didn't matter that no one came to pick me up and help me. I was just relieved that fight of and the fear of being sent home, it was gone. It was all gone. And knowing that I had actually completed my high school, my goodness, that it was just something else I cannot even begin to explain. I remember on my way out, and I really wanted to go to the bazaar and just to see how much of my balance was remaining, just to have a look. And then I thought, you know what, I'm not gonna go and tempt fate. No way. I might go there and then they look and then find that I actually didn't have, I hadn't finished my fees, and they'll probably hold me there and make me work in the fields for I don't know how long. I wasn't prepared to do any of that, so I quickly went away. Right. The reason I'm talking about some of these things, obviously, it's not because I'm happy or I'm encouraging any child to not pay their way or anything of that. But what I really want you to look at is the will of that child. The determination of the child at that age, knowing that there is circumstances beyond what she can manage, but then only using what she has. Yeah, the only thing I had in my possession was me and my mental faculties. So I used my will and my determination to try and say that I'm going to keep that image, to try and keep it the way I wanted it to be. Do you suppose that if my mental faculties had not been strengthened, I would have been able to deal with such issues? You know, when I rationally think of those moments in my life, sometimes I cringe to think that a small girl would have to go through that. I was just not as I was not only as a young girl. I physically have a small body, but you can see my mind, the dreams. They don't know small. They don't. Dream knows no small or big. They don't know anything. They know that they can overpower anything. Can you imagine if I wasn't strengthened, my mental faculties were not strong enough, I would have been able to encourage myself through such tough times and to keep going no matter what? When I think about it, I would have probably committed suicide. Yes, there's children that I know that committed suicide. Oh yes, and there's children in the same conditions as me that were really depressed. I know one of the girls in my school in Form 1, she committed suicide in our high school, right? Remember, this is just one of my most remarkable success stories in high school. There's others. I have others which I can tell you. Like, for example, how I taught myself to speak good English. Because when I went to high school, I discovered that the way we spoke in primary school, really, no one was ever, that kind of English was never going to take me anywhere. So I had to teach myself to speak good English. And then there's things like how I pushed myself into particular activities in school just to be able to get involved and go into to get a mind expanding life. And for example, there's also another story of how I won a national German studies competition and I won a trip to go to Germany. But because I couldn't raise the ticket, right? I couldn't raise the ticket to go to Germany. My prize was given to another girl who could raise the money. And how on that day I remember making another decision that would change my life again forever. Remember? I remember giving up this opportunity to the girl who was number 2. And I remember crying so hard. But you know what? On that day, I made another decision that would change my life forever. I made a decision that one day I would live in Europe and not just visit. And again, as I'm talking to you from England, and that's where I live, right? The reason I'm particularly telling you these bits of story is to encourage you to expose your child to mind expanding people, mind expanding activities, mind expanding teachings, mind expanding and mind strengthening opportunities. Keep them connected to these ideas so much until the ideas become part of them. These ideas can shape their destiny. They can help them dream, and they can help them shape their destiny. They can dream, and remember, we have said again and again that dreams don't know no facts. Dream has no regard for the pasts. Dreams have no regard for circumstances. I know the truth that I'm presenting here. It has worked for thousands of other people, both old and young. The reason you hear me emphasizing on children, it is because it is my hope that we who know should introduce these truths to kids from as early as possible to help them face life from an advantage point. I talk about this with passion because I know what these ideas can do to children. I am so fortunate to have been introduced to these ideas when I was young. Yeah, holding everything constant, I'm not sure if I would still be alive. I'm not sure, because I know most of the children that we grew up with, they have died from all sorts of things, and it was all circumstances. I didn't even know that I had this. Until later on in life, I didn't know that what was happening in my mind. The reason I was able to conquer all these things is because my mental faculties were strengthened. I didn't know. I didn't know all that. I think the mere fact that I'm speaking to you today should convince you to introduce your child to these truths immediately. You know what I know, right? You know what I know, that my daughter will not have. You know what? I know that my daughter will not have as bad circumstances as I had when I was growing up. But you know what? I'm not taking any chances. I will proactively teach her these truths, because these truths will help her strengthen her mental faculties, right? Sometimes I teach her casually. Sometimes I teach her systematically in sessions. I tell you what, twice a week, we have what I call top kid sessions with her. And in fact, she doesn't even feel like it's even a structured session, because she gets to be a top kid. She's only 5 years old, and I've been doing these structured sessions since she was 3. So anyone who wants to introduce their child to these mental strengthening truths, you can do it as early as you want, right? As early as you can. Fantastic. And what happens is, you will tell the difference between kids that have been introduced to these truths, because you will see their level of awareness. It is higher than many people, and you will see their confidence it's beyond the level of other children, right? Right. The thing is, if you would like me to send you a free introduction on how you can have some top kid session with your child, just email me today. Email me today. And my email is Angela, and that's Angela at topkidedutainment.com. That's Angela at topkidedutainment.com. And Top Kid Edutainment is spelled as TOPKID, and edutainment is EDUTAINMENT. That's topkidedutainment.com. That's Angela at topkidedutainment.com. Yeah, because I wish no child has to go through the experiences I went through. But I do know that children will have to go through some experiences. And the question is, how will yours fare? Will their mental faculties be strong enough to be able to topple anything that comes their way? Right? Will they be able to topple anything that comes their way? You know what? We can help them today. We can help them face all the challenges, right? All the challenges that lead to poor self-image, poor grades, obesity, suicide, child depression. We can eliminate all those by just strengthening the mental faculties. How will your child deal with these challenges? Will your child be a victim, or will they be a victor? Right? What do you want your child to be, a victim or a victor? Both options are available for you, right? Every child, yeah, every time we see children having poor self-esteem, poor grades, obesity. These are not the problems. The real issue is the self-image of the child, the mental strength of the child, the lack of purpose, the lack of dream of the child. I tell you what, if we can get rid of the darkness, yeah, by switching on the light, then we can make more victors than victims. Discussing darkness will not make it. Worrying about darkness will not make it. Fighting the darkness will not make the darkness go away. Only switching on the light will make the darkness go away. So today, I'm encouraging you to join with me, that we shall switch the light on for the child. And this is what I'm doing today, and suggesting that you induct your child into the light. Right? Don't do nothing and expect something. No, no, no. Consider your child like a rich garden. And if you do not actively cultivate and plant the right seeds, guess who's moving in? And who's moving in fast? The weeds. And the harvest will be bountifully weeds. The only way our children will be victors is if we help them develop their mental faculties, and also teach them the 4 irrefutable principles of success, prosperity. We want to help them have the prosperity strategies. We want to motivate them, and we want to empower them. You know what? Aside from that, we can take them to schools. We can clothe them with fine linen. We can build mansions for them. We can drive them in fancy cars. But if they don't have their own engine, if they don't have their own power or their own dream, their own power, the power of the dream, and the right fuel to propel them forward, they will not move forward. They will not move forward. Now, if you need any information on all the programs that we have for your child, right, I need you to email me straight away. We have programs to develop your child's mental faculties, and we have programs from from birth to 19 years old. And I want you to contact me today, right? And especially today, if you have a child between the ages of 0 and 19 years old, because all our programs are for children, but obviously there is different programs for different children. But I want you to contact me today and let us position your child on the safari to success. Don't miss this out. Email me today, Angela at topkidedutainment.com. In fact, when you email me today, I'm going to be sending you a particular gift in the range of a free program. I'm going to be sending you a free program for your child in their age range. A free starter program, a free starter success program. Now email me today, Angela at topkidedutainment.com. Thank you.